Hello everyone, you're watching another episode of Military TV. The rule of aircraft is that every aircraft takes off from any sufficiently large field that allows takeoff into the wind. As aircraft became larger and faster, runways were built in multiple directions. Nowadays, new airports mostly have parallel runways. However, there's still some airports using crossing runways for takeoffs and landings. The question is, why do these airports still have intersecting runway operations? If you're curious on the answer, stay tuned and watch this video till the end. Between the First and Second World War, aircraft grew larger and flew faster. This in turn meant that they required longer runways. Few fields would be large enough to allow landing in any direction. This was exacerbated through the need for a hardened surface, at which point the real runway was born. To ensure that aircraft could largely operate against the wind, with heavier aircraft, higher speeds, and longer runways, most airports expanded into parallel operations after World War II. Crosswind tolerance was increasing as aircraft speed, mass, navigation, and control improved. While operation into the wind was preferable, an airport with only parallel runways was no longer an impossibility. All of the new airports have parallel runways since they have some advantages. Simultaneous use of converging runways requires extra monitoring, so it counts on the factor of safety. It's also expandable. Most airport expansions also increase the number of runways by adding parallel runways. And the expansion of through further parallel runways seems to be less complex. A good example of this is Chicago O'Hare. The following scene shows the evolution of Chicago O'Hare's runway layout from time to time. This airport changed from a system of 3 pairs in 3 directions before 2000, followed by an additional parallel runway in 2008, and some additional improvement in 2015, into a system with 6 parallel runways and only 2 intersecting runways in 2021. However, some airports also have intersecting runways, often as a consequence of expansion, but are often used to provide a minimal crosswind option where wind direction is changing variably. Although the use of both runways simultaneously may serve to increase flight efficiency, especially for shorter approach tracks and taxi routes, for example, there are considerable risks associated with simultaneous operation of intersecting runways. Rigorous protocols must be in place to avoid a runway incursion. But then, why do crossing runways still exist? The following are some of the reasons. First, it seems to have more sustainable capacity. While crosswind limits have risen over the years, they still exist and do occasionally close down airports with only parallel runways. This benefit only gets realized, however, when multiple runways in a different direction are available, as crossing runways limit capacity through interaction. Furthermore, the benefit depends on the amount of variation in wind direction at the airport. Secondly, it has a historic growth. Once such an operation exists and the surrounding towns and cities expand, the interaction of aircraft noise and building permissions make it difficult to significantly alter the operation without large impact to the now established surrounding community. Perhaps this aspect extends further in that the varying direction allows for much more spread of the impact noise. Thirdly, it demonstrates safety. Years of operations at large airports like Amsterdam, JFK, Boston, Chicago O'Hare, and San Francisco have proven that such runways can be operated safely. This leads us to the last question. Are benefits really that significant? Although the benefit of a more sustainable capacity appears to be significant, adapting to shifting winds comes at a cost. Wind conditions become more volatile as more options are available. That is, having more options increases the risk of the runway combination being used. Furthermore, the reconfiguration procedure is costly, because the old and new aircraft streams on the ground and in the air may not be compatible. There'll be a temporary reduction in capacity if that's the case. Additionally, the reconfiguration is a high workload process for ground and TMA air traffic control. Finally, a change in runway orientation may have a significant impact on taxi times and consequent delays. That's it for today. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, comment, and share. And the most important one is to hit that subscribe button for more updates on awesome videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.